It's recruiting season. Peach Jam is upon us. Who is Dan Hurley going to be scouting? We'll tell you one surprise you may not have heard of yet. You're Locked On UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Little housekeeping, my YouTube support has been fantastic. I can't keep saying that enough. You guys keep subscribing. We're adding more subscribers on a daily basis. Downloading the audio version wherever you get your podcasts is equally as important. So if you're a YouTube subscriber, go ahead and get yourself set up with clicking subscribe on this YouTube channel, correct? But also head over to Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Hit that follow button. This way you'll never miss a moment of Locked On UConn. I can't tell you how much your support means to me. It's everything. You're in tuning in from your car or once you finish the show, please drop us a 5-star review. Good reviews trigger referrals for similar shows where we could get some new audience members who are interested in more UConn content. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. With the playoffs over, the sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Recruiting lists are everywhere, right? Peach Jam is upon us. Dan Hurley will definitely be in South Carolina come 3 days from now, July 13th to the 21st. I don't know if he does all 8 days, but this is a culminating event of the Nike Elite Youth Basketball League, EYBL. It's an elite circuit that features some of the most talented high school basketball players in the United States and beyond. It's held annually. They call it the Peach Jam because it's down south, represents the pinnacle of competition for the EYBL, bringing together the top teams who have battled through multiple sessions throughout the spring and early summer. So this is also known for its very high level of competition, featuring many players who are going to be playing Division I college basketball and eventually the NBA. Qualifications are teams earn their spot in the Peach Jam through their performance throughout several EYBL sessions held in different cities across the United States. So it's a really good exposure for these kids going out and traveling and playing really great high-level competition. Peach Jam takes place, as we mentioned, just a few days from now. Also, the first yawn of the show, I think it's, 3 or 4 minutes in? Apologize. So July 13th to the 21st in North Augusta, South Carolina. It includes 3 different age groups, so it's actually great for coaches to go down and check out players that they're starting to keep an eye on, under 17, under 16, under 15, and it allows younger players to showcase their skills as well, clearly. With the scouting and the recruitment aspect of this, Peach Jam is heavily scouted by college coaches, as you know. Recruiting analysts go down, and that's where you get your list from. NBA scouts looking at players like, you heard of him before, AJ Dybantsa, maybe the Boozer brothers. It's crucial for players to seek elevation in their games to kind of elevate their profile. I hate to use this word, but their brand, because I mean, let's face it, guys, even like guys like AJ Dybantsa already have shoe deals. So it's a really high profile event. It's where people want to be to showcase their talents. Many current NBA stars have participated in the Peach Jam during their high school careers, really further cementing the event's reputation as the breeding ground for top talent. So the names that Dan Hurley will be following and making sure he's locked in on: Malik Thomas, Darius Acuff Jr., Caden Lewis, Darius Adams, number 1 recruit AJ Dybantsa, and even the Boozer brothers. Some of these guys won't be coming to UConn next year. We'll get into that soon. If you look at, I'm not going to put it on the screen, but average points per game, our top target, Malik Thomas, is averaging just over 20 points a game. I think he's averaging something like 6.5 rebounds too. So that's pretty good from the shooting guard position. I love that. I don't love he's not in the top 25 in assists. I think that goes down to 3.2 a game. We can get Malik Thomas to pass the ball a little bit more. But I mean, listen, at this point, doing what they're supposed to be doing. But he also is an elite defender, averaging 2 assists a game, so that's quality too. See some other names in this list that we're high on, including Caden Lewis, averaging 16.5 points a game. I think it's yawn 3 in under 10 minutes. Brutal. Got 0 sleep last night. Sorry about that. Battling through some throat issues too. Darius Adams averaging 15 points a game. Good to see that. I think obviously the best player is Cameron Boozer. I think AJ Dybantsa might be the best talent, but as far as production, Cameron's averaging 25 points, 14 rebounds, and I think 6 assists or 5 assists a game. So yeah, kid's a beast. Comes from good stock. I know he's a Duke guy. I know we don't like them clearly, but player's a player, right? I think the interesting one is the name that keeps popping up for me, and he got an offer from UConn. He's a 5-star that went off in a recent tournament in Rock Hill, South Carolina at the 3 SSB. He had 26 points, 9 rebounds in a win. He's a 6 foot. I mean, up to 6'9" is what I'm seeing. 6'7" to 6'9", probably with shoes on. So we'll give him 6'8". He has 32 offers, including from UConn. It's a name to watch, and he's shooting up these recruiting boards too. He's a 5-star now. Nate Ament. He was first spotted on the national radar during the spring-summer of 2023, leading a team loaded NC. Ament stands close to 6'8". That's what people are writing. I wonder what his actual measurables are, but he's tall and slender, but you can't let that slender frame fool you. He's absolutely mobile. He's mobile. He's skilled as a forward, power forwards, maybe a small forward. Positionless is kind of what Dan Hurley is going to love about this kid. Positional versatility. He has great shooting range, can stretch defenses and create mismatches. He's also developing strength. His effortless play and potential are turning heads. And if you watch any highlights of this kid, he's a freak. Like he looks like he's got like he's an octopus, like he's got 8 arms. I don't think he's at Peach Jam because I don't think he plays in the EYBL, but that's here nor there. Over the past few months, Nate Ament has become a top 10 power forward in the class of 2025 for Warrington Highlands School in Virginia. So UVA is definitely in the mix. They're the favorite, but he did start to get some blue blood interest from UConn, Kansas, Kentucky, UNC, and not a blue blood, but Arkansas and Kansas State. 25 Division I programs have kind of come out of the woodwork to offer this kid because he's putting on a show everywhere he goes. But remember this, and remember this about any recruit that we talk about from now until the end of recruiting season, which is shortly, like a month or so. If we talk about him and he doesn't come to UConn, Dan Hurley's favorite time of year, the transfer portal season, is right around the corner. It's right after the season. And one of the things that I've talked to coaches in college basketball about is, regardless of whether you get a kid as a recruit, they are always a possibility in the transfer portal, because the way you look at college basketball now, it's rare if no one transfers at least once. So you have a second shot. So with a kid like Nate Ament, with a kid like Darius Apecoff Jr., with Caden Lewis, like some of these, think about all of the 5-stars that Duke recruited last year that transferred. They all got tampered with, according to John Shire in a recent podcast, but that's not new, right? So the idea is you cast an incredibly wide net so that when said player is either a disappointment or does really well, but doesn't feel like it's a fit for them at, in this case, UVA. If a Nate Ament goes to UVA and he is saddled with playing for Tony Bennett and the worst offense in college basketball, one of the, if not the best defensive scheme in college basketball. So whatever, maybe he's not enamored with that. Maybe he wants to come to UConn as a sophomore. So whenever there's someone that I feel like fits Dan Hurley's profile, you can't get everyone. Just take it as a grain of salt. Know that there's a possibility in the long run that these guys are potentially coming to UConn in the future. We'll bring in Joe Arruda to talk Dan Hurley's media availability and other fun-related UConn topics coming up after this. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But also the playoffs are over. We get fewer games, and the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But FanDuel lets you keep the sports going whenever you want. All I have to do is open up the app, dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking everybody up, all of their customers, with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, we're back on Locked On UConn. As promised, we're going to bring in Joe Arruda. Let's bring him in now. Joe, welcome to the show, my man. Thanks for coming on the show.
Of course. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, anytime. Open invitation. So Dan Hurley had his media availability. I watched most, if not all of it. I read some of the transcripts. I have some interesting quotes I'll ask you about today. But I'm curious from your point of view. You were there. I know you asked a few questions. It's kind of hard to, because the focus is on him. So like there's a couple of funny videos I saw of Dave Borges because of the angle where, he's laughing or he's intimating about a comment that Dan is making. But he was the only one that I saw like in purview of the camera. So I definitely heard a couple questions you asked. From your perspective, tell me just about Dan's overall attitude. Like, how was the press conference? Give me your overall thoughts before we get into some specific questions.
Yeah, I mean, the press conference obviously comes a day after his contract, which he was happy about getting over with. That was something that he said took a while because he didn't want to look at it and deal with it, which is what he told us a day before the Lakers news came out. But yeah, I mean, you can imagine now most of the stuff is out of the way and he can focus on this year. Obviously he's recruiting, next week with Peach Jam, everything that you mentioned, but yeah, I mean, he seemed relieved and to get it over with. And, they have the White House visit, which is still being planned, but, pretty much everything from last season is out of the way now. So he's looking forward to getting this team ready.
Yeah, definitely seemed just as locked in, if not, more than in the past, if you will. He doesn't really change much, at least from his answers. He reminds me of a lot of different college coaches. I've heard this phrase, and I know he said this a few times, because I think someone asked him in the presser, if I'm wrong about this, they asked him if you get to enjoy certain time, like, you get a chance to kind of take a step back. And he talked about the throwing out a pitch at Yankee Stadium. He talked about the eventual White House visit, the parade. Coaches don't get a lot of time to reflect. So one controversy, if you can call it that he kind of addressed, and I'm curious how the media is dealing with it with you guys. Who brought up the TikTok stuff? Because was it Dan, or was it editorialized? Was it a question that he eventually used as a way to kind of bring it out, or did someone specifically ask that question?
Well, first off, I wanted to mention this about the parade because I think it's hilarious that he was recruiting while he was at the parade, which was supposed to be a break that he. But on the TikTok
by
stuff,
by the way, Terrace Reed did come to UConn,
and he did, yeah. I mean, you gotta. They want him pretty bad if they're going to bring him to the parade. But
true.
The TikTok stuff. Someone asked him about what the team needs to work on in the second summer session, and he brought up let's do less TikToks. He wasn't happy with that one. I think a lot of people saw it. It was posted in a few different places, and he famously had that quote that we're not a TikTok school.
Yeah.
So that obviously, can get thrown back at him. So he didn't like that. I think that TikTok has since been removed or made private or something like that. I'm not on TikTok. Probably one of the few people in my age bracket that isn't.
Well, there goes one question. I won't ask. Go ahead, continue.
So yeah, I mean, I think he had that taken down. I don't think it was really that much of a big deal, but it was a freshman that posted it, and he'll learn.
Well, and it was Isaiah Abraham, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't tell. I think I saw it secondhand on Twitter. I find it very funny. I did the first segment on the show yesterday about it because I think what's interesting is, and I'm curious your take. I won't ask you if you have TikTok because you already said you don't have it. I only have it for clips of this show, so it's not my personal TikTok where I'm doing dance videos. Although there's some funny ones of my son and I trying to sing songs together, which is pretty silly. But do you think you can be a balance of what Dan Hurley talks about being? He talked about this about his assistant coaches having an obsessive nature about winning, about the game of basketball and everything that goes into being a great organization, do you think there can be a balance between kind of like the new age athlete that wants to do some of the silliness that's on TikTok, but once it gets down to business, can you be locked in? Because famously, Cam Spencer has no social media, but he's like the one outlier. Everyone else on that team last year, Donovan included, just got drafted. Steph Castle, although probably wasn't very active, they had social media, maybe not TikTok. But so do you think there's a balance? You can be balanced, or do you think you need to kind of totally detach yourself to be like Dan Hurley to be a part of his program? Or do you think there's a mixture?
I think it's kind of old fashioned to say that you can't be. I mean, these kids grow up and they're on they're born and they're on TikTok. I mean,
Right.
social media is just something that kids do. Jared McCain is a good example. He's a very good basketball player, for as much as everyone wants to knock him for his TikToks and the things that he does on social media. But yeah, I mean, you can balance. But I mean, UConn obviously wants to focus to be mainly on basketball, and those were some of the questions that McCain had to deal with. But I think he's proving that he can balance it, and his presence is a lot different. He's an influencer. I don't think anyone on UConn's roster is trying to be an influencer. I think it was more kind of just a fun thing. And it's what kids do now for fun, so I think it's kind of old fashioned. But that's how Dan Hurley wants to run his program.
And old guys like me, we love that. I mean, I won't lie to you. We love that Dan Hurley wants to be old fashioned. I mean, he's famously said, we try to get old souls, like whether it's younger guys who have traditional values in the respect of they're going to come in, what are all the old quotes? I'm going to put my lunch hat on and go to work and all that stuff, be real hard nosed. So I get that. I also think that I think you can be both. But yeah, I think there's a difference. I also feel like, do you agree with this? I made a comment yesterday and people responded to it on YouTube. Do you think if that wasn't done in the locker room, he would have had as big of an issue?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much of an issue he really had with it. I think he just was probably like, take that down. It's stupid. But I don't know. I mean, maybe it probably drew more attention to it.
Yeah, I feel like that's like that's like the sanctity. Like, it's kind of like that's their church. That's their private space. If that was done in the dorm room, he would have been like, do you guys really need to do that? But I don't think it would have been take it down because that's different. That's their on their own private time.
The other thing that McCain has said is like, it takes 20 seconds to do one of those videos. It's not really taking that much out of your day. I mean, I obviously, like I said, don't have it. So I don't know.
It sounds like you want one. Sounds like you want one, Jeff.
Honestly, after this, I might have to.
Yep.
We might find out some valuable information on there, it sounds like.
Maybe. One of my favorite quotes from the presser, and you tell me what your thoughts are. He said Dan said this about Liam McNeely. He said he's got some of that fire that Cam brought to the locker room. I think opposing fan bases will find him to be an acceptable villain. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten to see him play in person. I saw him play at the Hoop Hall Classic with Montverde and everything. And he's coming in. I just actually wrote this story for the Current. He has the confidence of a 5-star recruit that came from the best high school in the country that was top 10 in his class. And he is all of those things. So yes, I mean, he kind of, he looks kind of like sort of a Dookie player, those Dookie players that.
Ooh, that hurts a little bit, but go ahead.
That people love to hate. But obviously if he's on your team, you love him. He hits, a lot of shots. He's a fun player to watch. He can do a lot of things that people may not expect him to be able to do. And, I haven't really seen him chat it up on the court, but I'm kind of looking forward to it.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, if he's on that Cam level. Speaking of Cam, did you watch any of his summer league last night? He looked pretty damn good. He
just looks automatic. The play in the corner where he missed the shot, got the rebound, the guy's shoe falls off, and he hits the three. Yeah. I mean, that was his face at the end of that clip was hilarious. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I definitely did. I watched. I'm a hoops nerd, so I'm watching all kinds of silly stuff. But summer league is tough to watch. But if there's one thing that I'm seeing a theme of is these UConn guys, because Steph played great last night too. I haven't had a chance to watch I don't think Donovan or Tristan have been on, but Cam and Steph in particular are really showing the difference of being at a big program like UConn and having that structure, because some of these guys have coming from mid majors or schools where maybe they transferred multiple times, and man, it's like Cam looks like he was like a step ahead of guys who he has no business being a step ahead of. He just kind of understands where he needs to be, and I almost feel like there are times where I don't know if he would admit this publicly, but privately he might say like, these guys don't know how to play basketball on like the level that I know how to play. And so like I feel like he's a step ahead of a lot of these guys. And I think Memphis is really, I made a statement that Memphis, whoever drafts him, in this case Memphis, it'd be one of the best decisions they ever made from a general manager perspective. So hopefully that's going to turn out to be true, because he's pretty damn good.
Yeah, Memphis definitely their draft, it's looking good. Wells last night too, and Zach Edey.
Yeah.
Way better than I expected him to, not gonna lie. So yeah, I think Memphis did a pretty good job drafting, and the same thing with Steph. I mean, he's really just impacting the game all over, finding his footing, and it's kind of hard to learn to play point guard with a bunch of guys that you just started practicing with. So that's been impressive as well.
For sure. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube, free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this is interesting. They are making a new channel that'll only focus on college sports. So you're going to probably see a lot more Locked On UConn on Locked On College Sports once that starts, I think in about a month. Well, we're going to talk about a fun topic that you do in the off season, and we'll make a disclaimer on it with Joe. We're going to do a start, bench, transfer, multiple rounds, and even throw in a couple rounds of stars of stores guys, as that's coming up here in a few weeks. So we'll talk about that coming up after this. All right, Joe, it's time to put you in the hot seat. I don't have a Pat McAfee disclaimer that this is just a silly, segment, but I will say that I asked Joe to do this. It is start, bench, transfer. So if he picks transfer for a player that you like, do not get at him on Twitter about something, or I don't want to hear YouTube comments that Joe is crazy. He's nice enough to do this. I'm either going to agree or disagree with you and maybe have a little debate with you on this. So we'll start with current roster. None of these guys are transferring, at least right now, but just so we know. Okay. So the first one is we're going to go with the guards. This is a tough one. I'm going to put you on the spot right from the get-go. Hassan Diarra, Aiden Mahaney, solo ball. You got to start one, bench one, send one to the transfer portal.
That's tough right off the bat. I knew these are going to be hard. These are going to be hard because obviously you don't want any of them to go. But I'll say start Hassan. Or is Hassan even in this? Yeah, Hassan, Aiden, and Ahmad.
Solo.
Or Solo.
Nope. Yep.
I'm all over the place. We'll
get to them.
I would bench. Ooh.
Tough.
I'd say I'd bench Solo and Aiden. Sorry, man. But,
wow. That's to me, that's a shocker right off the bat. And this is
that might just be experience in Hurley's system. That might just be what that is.
I think it's a totally fair answer. I would, if you asked me the same question, even though I am super sold on solo ball, the reason why the transfer portal is so intriguing and exciting for me is because you get a guy who's a double-digit scorer to come in right away. I think if Aiden has a bad season, he's going to average at least 10 points a game. So I think I would start Hassan, I would bench Aiden, and I would unfortunately have Solo go in the transfer portal. But that's like splitting hairs. That's a tough one, 100%.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Aiden's going to have an impact on this team, and Solo's a guy that they're pointing at as a guy that's made a jump, and he's one of the sophomores to watch right alongside Jalen Stewart. And obviously Haas is the vet who's been there, and he just keeps getting better.
For sure. Okay. Let's switch it to the bigs. This is the center rotation, or the power forward center rotation. You got Terrace Reed, Yusef Singari, and Samson Johnson. You got to start one, bench one, transfer one. This might be a little easier, but I'm not assuming.
Yeah, so this one is definitely easier. No disrespect to Yusuf. He's just the younger, more inexperienced one. So I'm going to take Samson and Terrace. Probably start Samson, bench Terrace. Probably how it's going to be during the season, I would imagine. Yeah, I mean Samson saw glimpses of what he can do. Dan said he's putting on some weight,
I love
and
that.
and Terrace has a lot of room to improve as well. So that's going to be fun to watch too, just because the last 2 years they've at the center position, going from Adama and Donovan to Donovan and Samson, now Samson and Terrace. It's going to be fun.
I love it. Big Hoss, Terrace Reed. You know what? We talked about it briefly, but since we talked about him, what's interesting to me is he was the first transfer portal recruit that they brought in, and they obviously wanted him bad enough that they were like, come during the parade. I really don't think people are going. I think people are going to be really surprised at how fantastic Terrace Reed plays for UConn next year. If I'm wrong about it, I'll be shocked, but it would likely have to be factors. But I really do feel like he's really going to make an impact on this team, whether he starts or comes off the bench.
Yep.
All right. So there's another tough one. Go back to the guards. Ahmad Noel, solo ball, Aidan Mahaney.
Oh, jeez. Can't double down on Aidan Mahaney, but I can't switch it up now.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be similar. I think I'm going to start Ahmad.
Ooh.
I think I'm going to start him. He's a guy that he had a couple tough practices to start out with, but Dan Coach Hurley was impressed by his, resilience and the way that he learned from those practices and came back better. I think he's going to develop quickly, and I think he'll be ready when the season comes around. So I'll start him and see what he's got. And then I don't know, man. I can't do it to Aidan again. I'll put Aidan on the bench for this one, and I'll solo the transfer.
That's too funny. I love it. They're gonna double dip Aidan. Man, and be
No,
like,
man, I haven't even met him face to face yet. I can't do that yet.
He's gonna hear about you. He's gonna be like, listen, man, this guy Joe has me in the transfer portal already, man, twice. He's gonna make a TikTok about it. All right. So last one of the current staff. I feel like this one's a little easier, but I put a freshman in, actually 2 freshmen and a sophomore. So I think this one's an easy one, but what the hell? Jaden Ross, Liam McNeely, and Isaiah Abraham.
I'm going to start Liam pretty easily. We've talked about him a little bit, but he's going to be fun to watch. And then behind him is Abraham or Ross. I'm going to say Ross again. I'm going to go back to the experience card and pull that on Ross and have him on the bench. Abraham is another guy though that coach was talking about yesterday.
That's right.
He's better than they thought he was. So that's always good to hear about guys. Obviously in the summer, when their first impression, you're going to hear that a little bit more. We heard that about Jaden Ross last year, and we didn't get to see him much. But then again, we did hear that about him last year, so I'm excited to see what he can grow into this year.
Yeah, for sure. I did note that in the podcast yesterday that Isaiah Abraham has been a pleasant surprise for them. That I think Dan said something to the effect of, you kind of figure where these kids are, and sometimes they're a little better and a little worse, and that he was by far the most surprising. He needs to work on his shooting a little bit and ball handling, but his offensive productivity is above what they expected, which is great to hear. All right, so let's get away from the current team. They're all going to be here next year. They're all going to be competing, and I think Dan is really excited about it, and as we all are. Let's have some fun with a couple of guys that aren't on the team anymore. Either they've transferred or graduated. So I'm going to give you 3 right off the bat. Andrew Hurley, Andrew Johnson Jr., Apostolos.
I think I'm going to start Apostolos and bring in Andrew Hurley off the bench to close it out.
Closer.
And say sorry to Andre, but congratulations on Utah Valley.
That's right. Where did Andre transfer? Is it Utah Valley?
I think it's Utah Valley. I could be wrong.
I feel like there was someplace else, but you know what? Look it up while I get the next one going here.
I'm going.
This one's a really tough one, but it's fun because they're all in the NBA and they're all really, really recent. You got Cam Spencer, Tristan Newton, Stephon Castle.
Ooh. By the way, it is Utah Valley. Andre Johnson will be playing for Utah Valley. So I got Cam Spencer, Tristan, and Castle.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to start Castle for sure. That's not too hard. Then Cam and Tristan is tough because they're like polar opposites. But
yep.
Maybe a little bit of recency bias, but I'll go Cam. Haven't seen Tristan yet in the Pacers uniform.
All right. A lot of people are going to roll their eyes at that one. 2-time national champion Tristan Newton just got his number hanging in the rafters.
Hey man, it's tough competition, man. Tough.
I'm just telling you what I I'm not giving you anything for it. I'm just saying. All right. Now let's get into, we're doing an interview tomorrow with Mark D'Amelia, who is heading up the Stars of Stores with the greatest scorer in UConn history, and Chris Smith and his son being coaches on that team. These are all guys that are on the Stars of Stores that were former UConn players. So the first round is recent players, more recent, I should say. You got Joey Calcaterra, Ryan Boatwright, and RJ Cole.
It's tough because I didn't follow the team as closely until I started covering it.
It's okay.
So I'm going to have a little bias towards guys that were on the last two teams. That said, I'm going to start RJ Cole, and I'm going to bring in California off the bench. And I apologize for Boatwright. But that could be an entirely uninformed take. I don't know a ton about Boatwright.
No, I mean, and I'll take up for you. I think if you go by recent teams, Ryan Boatwright was an anomaly. He's 5'10", if that, maybe 5'8". He could jump out of the gym, 44-inch vertical leap. He was a really good scorer, really good shooter. Had a bunch of game winners when they were in the AAC. Won a national championship with Shabazz. So the only one that didn't win a title was RJ Cole. But I also feel like he wasn't on the best teams. And then Joey was I think I would keep my switch would be I would transfer RJ. No disrespect to him. I would start Ryan and have bench Joey. And just because I feel like Ryan is the better all-around player, but that's here nor there. All right. So if this one, that one was uninformed, you may have the same situation here. None of these guys won a national championship. DeAndre Daniels. So you have DeAndre Daniels, Jeff Adrian, and Rodney Purvis, all in different eras of UConn basketball. Rodney was during the Kevin Ollie years. Did he overlap with Hurley? I don't think he did. I could be wrong. I don't think he did. I know Jeff and DeAndre did not. So entirely up to you. What you want to do there?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be entirely uninformed.
Let's hear what a podcast is.
Let's hear yours.
Okay. So that's mostly what a podcast is, but that's okay. Let's go. I would start. This is tough because Rodney's, and I'm thinking, and this is the reason why I put Rodney in this mix. Rodney's a 6'4", 6'5" guard. Jeff Adrian was like a 6'5", 6'6" power forward. He is a beast, like 260, 270. He's probably that big still. DeAndre was more your prototypical wing, taller power forward at 6'9", 6'8", and could shoot it. So I got to start DeAndre because he literally became Carmelo Anthony for like a stretch during the national championship run where he made everything. It was incredible. Like you could post him up. He would hit pull-ups, put him in pick and roll where he would kind of flare. Jeff Adrian, I'm keeping on the bench because he's my enforcer, and he's a pick of a lot of people who would be their security detail if you needed someone, because he's a freaking monster and was just tough as nails on an 06 team that probably should have won a national championship. And Rodney, I transfer only, and I have no issue with Rodney, but I just don't feel like he had he didn't come through with the potential. Kevin Ollie used to call him. He transferred, and that's when you had to wait. He said it was like having a Ferrari in the driveway for a year, and you couldn't drive it. and I would not categorize Rodney Purvis as a Ferrari. He's a good player. He was not what they thought he was.
Hey, sounds good to me. That's gonna be fun to watch though. Those guys, after summer,
I'm excited.
Little UConn fans get to keep watching basketball all summer long. So
I mean, that it couldn't have come at a better time, because even the FanDuel promos are getting sad. It's like, hey, sports aren't sporting like they used to. Yeah, because there's nothing on. I mean, I'm a tennis guy. I play professionally. You can watch Wimbledon. You can bet on tennis. You can bet on MLB. But if you're a Yankee fan, it's pretty sad to be a fan right now, because they're pretty bad. But if you're a Red Sox fan, maybe you're excited. I don't know how many Met fans family I have out in UConn Nation. But listen, Joe, it's been great having you, man. I'm gonna let you go and get on with your day, and I'll end the show solo so you don't have to listen to any more promos. But I really appreciate you coming on, giving me your insights about the Dan Hurley presser and having a little fun with the start bench transfer.
of course, thanks for having me.
Hey, this is Joe Ruda from The Current. Go follow him at Joe Ruda9. Go subscribe to anything he has on online, and he's a great writer. Happy to have him.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe. All right. Shall we end the program? Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7 with all the stories of the day with your local excerpts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked in, stay connected, make sure your toughness meter is always rising. And as always, go Huskies.